we also implement principal-protected strategies. You need to do that even when you're young. Strategies where your dollars will never be lost. Usually the sacrifice is not on growth, it is simply on the access to the money. Hey folks, this is Colin Richards, president and founder of Lord & Richards, and once again, we're together on another exciting episode of Lord & Richards. Today, we're going to be talking about how to reduce risk as a young investor. You know, we're talking to people young and old, 20s, 30s, 50s, 80s, every single day, as part of our comprehensive financial planning process we call a financial independence review. And you know why we do that? Because people we're talking to, just like you, are concerned about things happening that are outside of your control, right? Like market losses, taxes going up, healthcare crisis. And what we do is we help you devise a written, comprehensive plan so you don't have to worry about those things. You can retire without fear. That's financial independence in my book. And today we're focusing our attention once again on young investors, but these principles apply to all investors. I'm just kind of reminiscing about when I was in my 20s and 30s and the things that I wish I knew back then, and the principles still hold today. One of the key things is how to develop a plan to avoid risk. You might think that as a young investor in your 20s or 30s, that risk shouldn't be on the radar. You know, I'm young. I've got years to recover if the markets go down. But there are so many more risks than just market risk. Market risk is the first risk I want you to address, because sometimes we go in very foolishly thinking, what could the market possibly do to me? It always grows in the long term. I can live through short term. I hear these kinds of things all the time. Do you realize that if you had invested in the S&P 500 in the year 2000, you would not have been whole again after two major drops until the year 2013? Now, let me just tell you, if you're 25 or 30, that's going to put you close to 40 or into your 40s. That means that you've suddenly lost a tremendous amount of time where your portfolio has gone nowhere. So I'm never going to suggest that just because you're young, you should cast the concern of risk to the side and just push all your chips forward. That would be unwise. You need to hedge your bets. So the first thing I want you to do is develop a plan to address market risk. We call it an investment risk management plan. And the keys that we implement here at Lord & Richards are, number one, we use institutional risk managers, not managers who are institutions, but managers who come alongside of our clients in our portfolio who normally manage risk at the multi-billion-dollar level for big enterprises like pension funds and foundations and endowments. These guys are used to mitigating risk and reducing volatility so that over time, your odds of success go up substantially. And I see it all the time. And what we've done at Lord & Richards is through our network, we've been able to take billions of dollars and entice and lure these institutional risk managers into helping us who are representing just mere mortals like you and me. Secondly, we also implement principal-protected strategies. You need to do that even when you're young. Strategies where your dollars will never be lost. Usually the sacrifice is not on growth, it is simply on the access to the money. Sometimes you can still get access, other times you might tie it up for a period of time. And you know what? All the time I'm hearing people say, I never want to tie up my money. I never want to tie up my money. Well, the reality is what we really want on long-term assets that you're going to live on one day, we want safety and we want growth, and we want to do both on the same dollar. Well, guess what? There's no perfection in investments, and that's the case here, where we're going to have to compromise some on liquidity in order to get what we really want. The key is, outside of your protected investments that are long-term, to have other shorter-term liquid investments where we're still managing risk, but you can get access to the money. The other major crisis I want you to be prepared for is a health crisis. We've talked in the past about term insurance. That's the insurance that will protect your family if something happens to you. If you're a breadwinner for your family, you need to take your earnings, take your family budget, actually preferably, and apply a multiple, usually about 20, to make sure that your family can continue to live even if something happens to you. We've talked about disability insurance as well, so that's a critical one. But there are other health crises that may be off your radar that you need to put back on. Just because you're young doesn't mean you can't become disabled. And so what we need is more than just typical disability insurance. We need what's called chronic illness or long-term care protection. And of course, as a young person, the world is open to you. You could even use the traditionally more expensive long-term care insurance because at your age, it might actually be affordable. This is the insurance that covers things that your normal health insurance won't cover, such as an extended stay in skilled nursing or needing help at home because you can't do 2 activities of daily living, like feeding or bathing yourself. These kinds of insurances are expensive as we get older, so you need to monitor that. There are also other ways to protect yourself against the high cost of chronic illness occurring. And the best time to do that is when you're young. I'm not talking about spending tons of money. I'm talking about sometimes doing smart things that allow you to kill multiple birds with one stone, not even having to add something new to your portfolio. Remember, unemployment could impact you. And so this is a big reason why we want you to have an emergency reserve and a growing reserve, both of which need to be accessible to you. That means they shouldn't be IRA money or 401k money. That kind of money gets penalized if you try to access it for an emergency prior to 59 and a half, except for a handful of very specific circumstances. And then, of course, early death, right? If you are lost, we talked about term insurance, but we also want to talk about developing other strategies for early death, say in retirement, right? Because sometimes we're not going to use term insurance in retirement, but we may want to have other backup income sources. If you lose something, your family loses something in retirement because you pass on early, such as your Social Security check. That can have a big impact. Your pension check, that can have a big impact. So these are just a few of the risks that I want you to address as a young investor or even as an older investor. It's critical that we get on top of this as soon as possible because the clock is ticking on each one of these kinds of risks. And forewarned is forearmed, as they say. Well, we're helping people just like you all the time, and all it takes is a simple conversation with me or with my team. It just starts with a very simple phone call. We'd be delighted to visit with you today.